Winterspell has been fully revealed, and with that, of course, there's a homebrew for every single ink combination in Disney Lorcana now. There are so many new cards that seem so very potentially impactful. So today, the question is, how do you start? Where do you start? What's there? Hopefully today we can get you through some of those things, along with fill in maybe a little bit of blanks here and there about some of the cards that may or may not be seeing play and why or why not. With that, I want to get right on into the deck list today because I know that's really what you're here for. Let's get into it. Alright, so Winterspell Dogs, day one. We are looking at a couple new cards here. The first and foremost might be one of the, highlight characters of Winterspell. Grandmother Willow is a 2-cost, uninkable, 1 strength, 2 willpower with 1 lore and the ability Smooth the Way. Once during your turn, you pay 1 less for the next character you play this turn. This is a card that's in very, very impactful so far early on. It's probably making all of the rave online. Lots of DLC champions among other very prominent DLC players are complaining about the one, the only Grandmother Willow. And I think it's kind of fair, but, listen. That's what happens with new sets. Good cards are printed, and we should probably learn to just move forward with those prints and figure out how to deal with them. Another new card that we're trying out is Simba here. So Simba, the Playful Pouncer, is the 2-cost, inkable, 2 strength, 2 willpower, 1 lore with the ability you don't stand a chance when you play this character. Chosen opposing character gets -2 strength until the start of next turn. And, of course, the finale here, the Mulan Resourceful Recruit, is the 2-cost, inkable, 1 strength, 4 willpower with no lore, but the ability Rigorous Training. Whenever this character quests, gain lore equal to her strength to a maximum of 6 lore. And you can see there is no Emerald in this deck. We're pretty familiar around here to not playing Emerald in our dogs decks. I think in most cases I kind of compare this card to a crutch at times, if I'm being honest, and I think that that's really what it is for most of the format. And now you have some new tools that you can really, manipulate with Simba and things like that a little bit better. Of course, Della's is another song that goes around. Some of the other cards we really want to be focused on right now is Jumba. So Jumbo here is an 8-cost, inkable, 4 strength, 5 willpower, 2 lore with 2 abilities. Welcoming Crowd. For each character you have in play, you pay 1 less to play this character. And the ability I Am Helping. Whenever this character quests, you may remove all damage from chosen character. I know that this card probably looks a tad win more, but in all honesty, the way the strategy of dogs is getting is that very often you're not questing until you're in that full quest mode. And Jumbo really fits into that playstyle quite well, and it also really represents a nice little way to kind of double down on the ability to remove damage from a character. You may remove all damage from chosen character is pretty nifty, because now not only are we playing the Jumbo that can do it, that's also a 4/5 body. If you play 2 for this character or 3 for this character, you're paying 3 for a 4/5 with 2 lore. So you're not only is your board so threatening because it's 5 or 6 wide now, but now you're just adding another really big static character to the board that can take hits, take damage, kind of play a quote bodyguard for your team, and just be a little bit of a nuisance. But that remove all damage is also pretty relevant when you're talking about cards that have 8 willpower, 6 willpower, 4 willpower. This enables your lady to go into a challenge, banish something with 3 strength or less, and then you can quest with your Jumbo, completely heal it back up. I think it does a lot of really nice damage. And of course, the final card to talk about here is Ohana Means Family, which is the 3-cost, inkable action for the legendary action for Amber here, and it removes all damage from chosen character of yours and draw a card for each damage removed this way. So all in all, Dogs it's getting a lot of tools. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I think what it does the best is that right now, Dogs is in a good position, but Amber Emerald is in a good position. I think that even in this video, you're going to see a couple different Amber Emerald decks. But the truth is that I think that you could convince me that there might be 5 Amber Emerald decks that you could be kind of starting with and messing around with once this hits your shelves and things like that, or through other means on a client or something like that. So the point is that all of these cards, and these are just a few of them, right? There's just like, this is like an itty bitty miniature version of like really what this deck is looking like. And I think that that's the coolest part, is that really when everything gets into brass tacks, you're starting to kind of really see what this deck is going to look like. And I think that that's the most interesting, because you really are just formulating this deck to its fullest. And I think that this is only one version of that, but at the end of the day, what Grandmother Willow represents for this deck is the consistency factor of a character with this ability. The biggest problems with Pluto and with Huey of the past is that you had to exert them early to get out their effect, and then you kind of limit yourself to getting your numbers that you want for Tramp. Grandmother Willow acts as this the whole time. Like, this deck would love in the past to have played Lantern, but it couldn't because it had to put a character in play. Now, Grandmother Willow represents that Lantern as a character. Yes, it's a 1/2. Yes, it can be removed pretty easily. There's lots of answers to it. But the fact is that it fits so very well into these strategies, it's actually kind of crazy. Dreamborn's acted up a little bit here. Sorry, guys. But the point is that really what Grandmother Willow is doing is it's enabling all of the lines that you still want, right? A 1 cost into your 2 cost, into another 1 cost, or a 1 cost into 1/1. This is what Grandmother Willow is representing, but she's doing it as a character, and she's doing it more than once. Unless your opponent has that answer for her immediately, she's going to really, take over the game in a pretty big fashion. And I think that that's like really the most like crazy thing about this. So if you want to look into or hear even more about this and really break it down, Melissa just updated the Dogs Guide yesterday. It'll be in the pinned comments below. She discusses, I think, 24 possible candidates for the Dogs inclusions, and really discusses like, hey, these are where it's at. And then it kind of just sums up on how exactly we got to this deck list. But all in all, it's really been a lot of fun to kind of see what this deck is going to do, see how powerful this deck can be, and really see early on how just strong aggro is formulating in the early game metagame, and seeing a lot of people a little upset about it. But I think this happens every single set. I don't really think this is anything new. I think every single set we get a full reveal and aggro looks like the craziest deck on the planet. And, half the time it's true for a couple weeks, and then eventually we get so far away from it that we forget that we even talked about it. And I think right now that's kind of what it is. We have to formulate what the best answers are for control decks. This is the way every single metagame will always go. It's so easy to build the aggro deck to attack the metagame when every other deck in the format is just trying to figure out what cards even fit into their mid-range, into their control strategies. So I'm not too worried about it, and I don't think you should be either. All right, so another big card that people really are interested in is Pudge. So Pudge is the 2-cost inkable, 1 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore with the ability Good Friend. If you have a character named Lilo in play, you can play this character for free. There is versions of Pudge that are Rockstar. There are versions in Dogs that are seeing this. I really wanted to just differentiate this list as much as possible, so that's why I wanted to get into Amber Steel and talk about where I would play Pudge in. Obviously, you can put forward this card in your deck. I am not completely sold that this card is as good as people are kind of like expecting it to be. I do think that it's a little bit win more, but in this strategy, when we're talking about repeating Lilos and Docs, then playing characters for free early really incentivizes that. But the really cool thing is that we have this new supporting cast. We have this new Lilo. While you have a character named Stitch in play, this character gains +1 lore. The problem with this Lilo in specific in this deck is there are no Stitches, so we're not gaining that extra bonus, right? Like this Lilo, which I think is really interesting, is that when you compare it to a Lady, Lady is the 1-cost uninkable 1/2 with when you have a Tramp in play, this gains +1 lore. So this is almost like a power crept version of that Lady if we get a Stitch that's kind of worth playing. And obviously Rockstar Stitch is always accessible. If you want to be more of a Rockstar Stitch deck, you can. This is still kind of leaning on Aurora and Tiana to really help you just like remove a lot of combat-oriented things in the game for you and protect your cards really well. But the really cool thing about this is that we're doing a lot of different things. But I want to get in there. We had Pudge, and now we have Nani, right? So Nani, I think Nani is a very underrated card that not enough people were talking about. But Nani is a 3-cost, 3/3 inkable, 1 lore with That's your cure. When you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a character card with 2 cost or less and put it in your hand, and then put the rest in the bottom. What Nani does is that Nani finds you Doc. You know, Doc Bold Knight has been one of the best defining draw cards in the format, basically since rotation. Honestly, since prior to rotation, this card's been seeing play. But with rotation, Doc become one of the most consistent, dominant draw effects. So having a 3-cost character that can go and find you a Doc is so very powerful, so very interesting. Obviously, the Lilo here for the Shift Lilo is a big deal. This is another card that kind of is doing some of the stuff for same as what Nani is doing, but it's a 6-cost, inkable, 3 strength, 5 willpower, 2 lore with Shift 4, and I'll count you in. Whenever this character quests, you may play a character with 2 costs or less from the discard for free. Listen, guys, we were before living in a world where we were playing the song that just brought back the Doc, and then I think it was I Won't Give In. I might be wrong, but you might be playing that card just to bring back your Doc, just to pay 2 and then draw 2. So essentially you were paying 4, or you were singing it and then paying 2 to draw cards. Lilo is like, hey, I'm going to shift in, I'm going to quest for 2, I'm going to put my Doc back in play, I'm going to draw 2 more cards. Like, that's a pretty crazy effect for this deck in all honesty. So yeah, Lilo fits in so perfectly in this deck. It's really going to enable some really fun play lines for you. But the key factor here is just like doing everything you can and then also doing the busted stuff. I think the most insane card in the set is Akun et Imudi, which is a 3-cost uninkable action song that reads, you pay 2 less for the next character you play this turn, draw a card. You literally just get to sing this. This is why we're back on singers. You know, for a really long time, we were kind of all singers. They just weren't really doing their job. But now, between Ursula's, between the Troubadours, you have the 7 singers. If you want to fit in Angel here, you can. She's definitely an option. But, you know, you now have the strengths and the Akuds. So because of the Akud, you can have some really explosive turns now. Having the idea of like a turn 1 Aurora into a turn 2 Ursula. You know, your turn 3 can be Quest with my Aurora, pay 1 less for a Princess, sing Akud with my Ursula, and this is all before we even inked, right? Now we're paying 2 more or less. We drew a card. We can just slam Tiana in play for free. Like, between Aurora and Akud, you're just slamming a Tiana into play for free, which I think is like really powerful and really fun. I think there is a world where this deck does turn sideways very well, and it does push the aggressive ledger, but at some point you might still have to find more room for Mowgli's here. Early on, I'm a big advocate for just slamming as many new cards into a deck as possible. That way you can kind of like really identify like what cards are good, what cards are bad. A card that we haven't spoken about yet is David, the 2-cost inkable, 1 strength, 4 willpower, 1 lore with bodyguard. He is just an upgraded Jim Deere, right? Jim Deere was a 2-cost 0-4. David, 2-cost 1-4. I like the idea that now we're kind of just going with David and Lilo, so they're like that whole theme is there. Obviously all the Winterspell stuff is going to hopefully look really nice and really cool. But yeah, I think that this is just another deck that as you see it over time, as you see it like really develop, you're just going to kind of have a new appreciation for what these decks can do, because Amber, just getting all of the new potential and abilities that they have been, really are just pounding the control-oriented format that we are coming out of. So very, very interesting early on to kind of like see, hey, where are we going to be in the metagame? What is going to be just like able to stop these really fast-paced Amber decks? So hopefully we can figure that out. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. Hard to say, you know, but early on it's nice to say that like at least there's a lot of excitement around Amber. We came out of a format where you played dogs or you didn't play Amber. So the idea that there might be so much life brought in because of Grandmother Willow, because of Ahana, because of Akud, like that is such a healthy thing for me, that going into a new format, that as long as you are talking about an ink that just didn't have enough like priority or enough cards in the past, then it means the game is progressing, and it means that the game developers are giving us excuses and reasons to kind of like explore some more. And I'm a big fan of that always. All right, so starting with the first Amethyst Steel budget deck. This is a deck that we focus on at least once per set. There's a couple of those that we always kind of like hit on, and there's gonna be some more of them in this video as well. But Amethyst Steel budget, you know, this deck, you can see it here, comes in at $36. Big fan of that, right? This deck is all about just turn and burn. There's really not many new tools to the deck, but just adding some stats into it. The big factor here is Gantu. Gantu is the 1 cost, inkable, 3 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore with the ability easy target. When you play this character, choose and discard a card. In the past, this deck did not really want to play Captain Hook because it wanted to be able to turn its characters sideways and not just immediately be banished or get anything from them. We're not really looking to be the deck that's on the defense. We want to be, all gas, no brakes. And what Gantu enables, he enables his ability to just turn this card sideways and quest, because it's going to force your opponent to get a trade. That means you're getting a trade out of your 1-cost character, and it's not very easy to do early on. There's only a limited amount of them that can really interact with Gantu. So this card can end up, trading up to a 2 or a 3, maybe even in some cases a 4. And I think that that's like the real powerful of this deck, because it's adding that. Christopher Robin, taking ability from the Underdog, 2 cost, inkable, 1 strength, 3 willpower, 2 lore with Underdog. This is the first. If this is your first turn and you're not the first player, you pay 1 less to play this character. So now this is one of the new mechanics of the set in general. And what I really like about the mechanic is that, not every one of these cards are going to be playable, because sometimes, if this costs 1, right, as a 1 cost, 1/3 with 2 lore, then you're very likely to get the 2 lore out of it. You're very likely to get what you want out of this character, and you're going to feel kind of rewarded. But later on, when you pay 2 for a 1/3 with 2 lore, you're also not feeling that bad. In all honesty, the amount of inkable gain, like 2 lore characters in the play are whoosh, really low. And then specifically, ones that aren't conditional, like Timothy Mouse comes to mind, where, yeah, Timothy Mouse can quest for 2, but only if you have an evasive in play. And the other character in this deck that we're actually working on with is also Nani, right? Like, Nani is the 2-cost inkable 1/4 with 1 lore, and she has the ability to take it easy. While this character has no damage, she gains +1 lore. We've seen this mechanic over and over again on steel characters. While this character is undamaged, it has plus strength and things like that, right? So it's really cool to see another ability that's taking use of that, and then for a different meaning. And I think that that's really cool too. So I really like the lower to the ground versions. This comes in at $36. If you're just looking to play week 1 and you're not, you don't want to spend any money on legendaries yet because you don't know how much they're going to cost, they're just like too expensive, this is the type of deck that you just turn and burn, right? Turn and burn. We have several sections about this deck in the guide that we have for Amethyst Steel as well. Aside from that, Library we think is back in this metagame. It's going to be potentially seen in a lot of different Amethyst Steel decks, but there's going to be some choices early. We also believe that Fire the Cannons. Fire the Cannons is a really hot topic in Disney Lorcana right now, because people are like, this card can't be good because it's bad. And, I think I'm going to come over here and talk to you guys like a little personal, but when cards are bad, to me, they have to be like unplayable. You're never going to put this in a deck ever. Fire the Cannons is not that. We have seen Fire the Cannons be successful throughout Disney Lorcana. Like, this is not even that much of a question. It's not even a debate, really. Like, people have played this card and have top 8 at major events, like won major events. Like, so this is a card that is very realistically like good to play. And then it's all about positioning. If you tell me the format is built on a bunch of X2s, then like paying 1 to remove a very high percentage of characters is going to feel very good. So this concept of Fire the Cannons is bad, it's not true at all. It's all about positioning. That's the whole point of any uninkable that you're willing to play in your deck, is that it's about the positioning of the card. The perfect example is Bend to My Will, right? Emerald Sapphire, they hate the idea that they have to play a 7-cost uninkable in their deck, but they have to respect the mirror match. Because if you're the one getting bend and, like, you're just done. Like, you're just so far out of the game, it's so hard to recover from, and it's very difficult in the mirror. So they have to understand, like, you know what? This card is really bad against 60% of my matchups, but, like, in the 40 that I need it, it's, like, game-breaking. That's what Fire the Cannons is going to be. If, like, the whole field goes into Grandmother Willow and, Angel decks and things like that are all just X2s, paying 1 to banish that card is going to offset the entire plan for a deck. I don't know, guys. That seems perfectly okay to me. Like, it's just like I don't really understand the problems here. I just don't like. Just I understand that you might not want to play it, but if it's a necessary evil to the metagame, then like you gotta play it. So, this is a deck again that we've covered a bunch. It is really about just turning cards sideways, gaining the lore. Olaf is a newer addition from set 10. Obviously, we're still a dock deck through and through, but we're also just gaining lore. We have Honeymarin, we have Giant Cobra, we have the White Roses, we have Gathering Knowledge of Wisdom. So it's really just about getting the most out of our characters early. All these characters questing for one or more, replacing themselves, drawing a card back like Diablo or Cusco, having the 2 or 3 lore here between Nala, Nani, and Christopher Robin, continuously drawing cards and then putting the stats in play, gaining lore, and then eventually gaining the lore and winning the game through Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom. The excessive draw, right? The ability to just continuously Amethyst Chromacon, very similar to the Emerald Amethyst decks of set 10. Chromacon is acting the same way in this deck. We're just supplementing it for some cards like Fire the Cannons and like Strength of a Raging Fire. This is very funny to me that this before, this couldn't be in the budget deck because it was so expensive, and now it's $1 card because of the reprint. So it's kind of funny to me. There is a world that this card's also not good, and you should just be playing another like character with lore or another action that draws cards, like anything like that. There's very good potential that this card could just as easily be Junior Woodchuck Guide if you're just looking to draw more cards and pressure the game. If you decide that Strength of a Raging Fire is not actually what you want to be doing, I don't even think that that's that crazy to say, and it'll make the deck even cheaper. But all in all, this is always a deck that we start with. It's something that we really like to put out there for people because we know that budgets are real, and it's always a deck that we put some games into and some time, have a conversation about it so people can play this early on in the metagame before, they spend too much money on the format in itself. Now, taking a look at the more mid-range, much more expensive version of this, $300 added on top, Amethyst Steel mid-range. We do believe that this deck is still going to be within the metagame. It's just going to be about figuring out which cards are best for it. The 4-drops are the question here, right? If you look at this deck, it looks tough, right? Like Dumbo, Genie, Isis, Sven, Yzma, Angel. That is a lot of 4-drops, right? Like the total number here is 3, 14, so 17 total 4-drops. Something has to give within these 4-drops. I have no doubt about that at some point we're going to end up cutting something here. I actually think it's going to be Genie. If you ask me the card that gets cut most commonly, I think it's going to be Genie. That's going to be my humble opinion. But yeah, this is a lot of different cards that we're here to try out for. We talked about Gantu in the last one, so we're going to skip him, and we're going to move into Isis. So Isis is the 4-cost uninkable, 4 strength, 4 willpower with 1 lore, and the ability Chill Out. When you play this character, exert chosen opposing character. Just a 4 strength, 4/4 that comes in and exerts. But, this deck is going to really love that. We have Captain Hooks, Gantus, Calhoun's, Black Herons, even a turn 3 Cobra or a turn 3 Lexington. We have all the stats in the world that if we play Isis on 4, we're going to exert whatever we want and banish it. Like, it's not even going to be thought. Whatever this card exerts, you will banish. For sure. Another new card that we really are excited about is Sven. Sven is the 4-cost uninkable, 2 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore with the ability Leaping Reindeer. This character has Rush, Challenger +3, and Evasive. That's right, this is a 4-cost uninkable, 5 strength, 3 willpower with Rush and Evasive. Basically banishes anything that's exerted at this point in the game. I think it's safe to say in most cases, the one card that gets around it that's possibly in play already is a card like Clarabelle, which is, a 6 willpower, so you will have to trade up with something else, but I do think that Sven, on average, has the ability to remove a ton of cards in the format, and therefore, it's worth testing. It really is. Angel is another card. So Angel is the 4-cost inkable, 3 strength, 3 willpower with 1 lore, the Experiment, 6/2/4 with 2 abilities, untouchable. While you have no cards in your hand, this character gains Resist +2 and Good Aim. Once during your turn, you may choose and discard a card and deal 2 damage to chosen character. Why do we think this card is good? Well, it's very simple. We think this card is good because of Yzma, right? Like, because we have Gantu, we're going to discard a card. We're going to have Cobra. We're going to discard a card and gain some lore. We're going to have the Angel. We're going to discard a card, do 2 damage. We have the potential use to play Fire the Cannons if we want to as well. So this is just like this continuously bombardment effect of characters that just do damage, discard the cards, empty our hand by putting stats into play and by putting reusable effects into play are a big deal. Because then you just get to Yzma. If anyone forgets what this card does, it has the ability to feel the power. If you have fewer than 3 cards in your hand, draw up until you have 3. So having cards like Gantu discards a card. Having cards like Cobra discards a card, gain 2 lore. Having cards like Angel, discard a card, do 2 damage. Like, you're completely siphoning your hand to activate cards that are in play, so then you can draw back up with Yzma and draw 3 cards. It seems weird, but it really creates this new effect of stats that are in play and creates these alternate play lines. You know, with a card like Angel, you don't necessarily need, a card like Elsa on 5. It's not necessary because you can just Angel on 4 or Angel on 5, discard a card, do 2 damage, run your Genie into something, do another 2 damage. You know, you can really move the game forward that way because you're spreading out damage along with protecting your cards in a way also, which I think is quite interesting. So I think there's a lot to be done here. Again, 17 4-drops, something is absolutely going to have to give here, but we promote this all the time. Like, the only way that we can know if a card's good or bad is just by jamming it in the deck, playing the games with it, and doing the research and figuring it out. Otherwise, we're just going to be spinning in circles and just waiting to figure it out. When if you just play the games with it early, right now, I have 8 decks, or this is one of them. This is a deck here. This is in a Heavy Play. Shout out to Heavy Play, sponsor the channel. TFM10 Heavy Play, or Heavy Play 10, I believe. Whatever. The link's always in the description if you're looking to pick up a new deck box. But shout out to Heavy Play. They're a sponsor of the channel. But we have 8 decks built that we printed out cards, and we're just going to play games with them over the next week or so before we get product in hand, because we want to just get those developed. I don't want to be there next Friday figuring out what cards are good. I want to play the games now, and I want to play with as many new cards as possible, which is exactly why we create decks lists like this, because I think it's important that you get this out of the way. If you lose your week 1 tournament, it's not the end of the world. But if there's a CCQ coming up, if there's information like that, obviously there's a week 1 CCQ, I apologize. Listen, you might want to get in the Metafy and have a real conversation. But, it's the real truth here is that when you're looking at these guides, it's no better. We do have an Amethyst Steel doc guide similar to our Dogs guide. This one will be getting updated. Also, we already had the Dogs guide updated. Amethyst Steel is on the docket. This is also going to be something that we're going to be continuously focused on. Any guide that we make, we don't ever get rid of. We just keep moving it forward in the core constructed rotation format. So this guide will be good for set 11 and set 12, and then when the rotation comes, we'll start making new guides. But for now, we're going to keep supporting those guides. So if you're looking to learn a little bit more about Amethyst Steel, check it out in the comments below. You can always find all of our guides on Metafy. Now, with that, we have something coming up. It is the one, the only, Sapphire Amethyst. So Sapphire Amethyst is another deck that I think is going to get a lot of tools, and it really breeds some creativity. And I know you guys are looking at this, and I'm going to do the full scroll just so you can see that I'm not crazy. There's no Hades 7 in this deck. Yeah, that's right. We're just not trying. We had to remove it. We want to try new cards, right? It might be wrong, okay? I'm okay with it being wrong. But what I really want to know is if Marshmallow is right. So Marshmallow is the 5-cost, uninkable, 5 strength, 5 willpower with 2 lore, and the ability Icy Blast. Whenever this character quests, each opponent can't ready more than one of their characters at the start of their next turn. So the idea here is Marshmallow into Demona. We have played a lot of games where Demona is about banishing a bunch of characters, getting rid of a bunch of things, and kind of moving forward. And I think that that's really what this deck has been about in the previous metagame. But I think that Marshmallow has the ability to create this metagame where you don't need to care about the board. We don't need to play Prince Philip combo, and we don't need to play a Raging Storm or something like that if we're just saying, hey, none of your characters can ready. If you just exert the whole board and then they can't ready because of Marshmallow, then you just get to quest. You just get to move forward. There's only a very small amount of cards that interact with Marshmallow in a way to banishing it after it's exerted. World's Greatest Criminal Mind, it obviously absolutely comes to mind, but like that requires the aggro decks to play World's Greatest Criminal Mind. Now you're offering, right? We keep talking about what can we do against aggro decks and how come they don't have to make any substantial changes to their deck. Well, a card like Marshmallow says, yeah, no, man, if you don't answer this, you're never going to quest again. Like, that's powerful. That's like really insanely powerful. Obviously, we're here again. We're on Ice's Vanderchill, and besides that, we're kind of just the same type of deck. Nothing new to be changed. We are back on Spooky Sites because we do think that Spooky Site might be another core answer. It's like, hey, you might just have to be able to play this card on turn 5 just to like not flat out lose the game, and that's just kind of understanding where the metagame is. Well, you have to make those points. We're also happy to see Let It Go back. You know, the ability of exerting, singing, putting a card into the inkwell is all very good. Having 6 copies of songs that do that really help with tempo. Still on Junior Walk Truck Guy. There are some other options that can be, built around and made for this, but that's kind of where we are. The one card here is Hades. I do think that Hades could be supplemented early for Pete, the new Sapphire character. That is a 5-cost inkable 5/5 that boosts 1. That whenever he quests, you get to look at cards and you basically develop your brain or visions and things like that. So if you're looking to try a new card there, I wish I would have put it in here. I just forgot to add it to the list. I'll probably edit this after fact and have it there to where instead of playing Hades, you can play that Pete. I've heard nothing but good things about him. He's definitely going to be in one of our decks coming up. So Sapphire Amethyst, it seems to be in a fine position. I think it's going to be good. I think that I've seen people already telling me that it's good and like represent that they're doing very well with it. And yeah, I think that it's just going to be about waiting exactly to see what you need to answer the aggro decks. And then once we get past that, we can kind of fill out the rest of the deck and really decide like, hey, what are the best ways to do it? Maybe Marshmallow is not the answer, but it's a card that I'm very interested in. And I really like pushing new cards early on. I think that's the most important thing. So speaking of ramp, Ruby decks, are they back? Are they back, guys? I don't know. I don't really know the answer if Ruby decks are back or not, but they did get a lot of new tools. So let's start from the bottom. So Grab Your Bow is a 5-cost uninkable song with the ability of banish up to 2 chosen characters with 2 strength or less. Just flat out banishing characters. That's great. This is Sisu on a song, but it's only 2 characters. It seems perfectly balanced to me. Could it have been inkable? Debatable, honestly. Marching Off to Battle is a 4-cost inkable song for Ruby. If a character was banished this turn, draw 2 cards. I think in a world where if Ruby is good, this card seems perfect in it. The cost of 4 is always going to be debatable. Of course, everything wants to be cheaper, but I think a lot of our play lines consist around putting a 4-drop in a play on turn 3 anyway, so it doesn't really matter if this card costs 3. Because we're just always going to be singing it with Belle or Cinderella anyway. And I think for the most part, that is okay. No new cards there. We're back to Maleficent. We're going to come back and talk about this Pete in a second here. But I want to talk about Liquidator now. So Liquidator is another underdog ability. Which again is if this is your first turn and you're not the first player, you pay 1 less to play this character. Liquidator is a 2-cost inkable 4 strength, 2 willpower, with Reckless. So no lore, of course. And this is just an answer to aggro. This is saying like, hey, go ahead, play your 1-cost character. I don't even care if it's a Daisy Duck. I can banish it. And I think that that's really good. It's really interesting. And I also don't think this card feels the worst to play on turn 2 against aggro, because against aggro, we're not always looking to ramp. Specifically, if they start out like really strong, then you might just need to say, hey, like this is a game that I need to put a Liquidator in play because I have to be able to banish a character. Maybe I'll just take a turn off and ramp on turn 2 or turn 3 instead. It just creates different play lines that you have to be able to work with. Another new card here is Belle. So Belle is a 4-cost inkable 2 strength, 3 willpower with 2 lore, and the ability Winter Stockpile. Whenever one of your characters is banished, you may put the top that card from your discard into your inkwell face down and exert it. Just basically saying like, hey, I'm gonna turn my T-Bows into ink. I'm gonna turn my Tinkerbells into ink. Turn my Liquidators into ink. Like anything that's going in there is now going to be very inked. It's very similar to what a Great Stone Dragon was. Shout out to Tomaz in the past. So that's kind of what Belle is going for. It also is a 2-lore threat. I think that might be the most unsung hero-ish part of this character, is that a lot of the times that you're doing this, you're just getting a 1-lore character. The idea that Belle does, represent a clock is important, I think, for these decks in a big, big way. Aside from that, one of the coolest new cards in the set is that Pete I was talking about a little bit ago. The Pete Ghost of Christmas Future is the 5-cost, inkable, 5 strength, 5 willpower, 1 lore, with boost 1 and 4 boding glance. When this character quests, look at a number of cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of cards under him. Put 1 into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So Pete really is just a walking stick of finding the best cards you want. For a boost 1, I think it's great. I think boost is a really awkward mechanic, and paying for more than 1 for it is very difficult in most indications. So having Pete be that 1 cost, I think, is so very powerful because it really does help the game move forward. And of course, it introduces a new card for us. Not new. This card's from set 5, Shimmering Skies. Pete, the Steamboat Rival, is a 7-cost inkable, 6/6 with 2 lore and the ability Scram. When you play this character, if you have another character named Pete in play, you may banish chosen opposing character. So now all of a sudden you start looking at this deck and you're like, wait a minute. I have the Headless Horseman, banishes a character. I have Pete, banishes a character. I have Hades, Inkwell a character. I have Maleficent, banish a character. Like, I have Grab Your Bow, banishes 2 characters. I have Let It Go, Inkwell a character. Half of your deck all of a sudden turns into these cards that reads Banish. It's also a 2 lore threat on a 6/6. I think that's really great and really powerful as well. So yeah, I think that this is really cool that this all of a sudden, like, I love going back into the bin, right? Like, the fact that this card, this card is 15 cents on TCG Player right now. I love that because in any world where this deck is successful and we get to pick up a card from Shimmering Skies that's been in a bulk bin forever, I don't care if this card just goes to $1, right? Like, I just think that's so cool. It really shows that it just takes some time for the game devs to have the ability to really just make cards better. And anything, this is the epitome, like, literally, like, this card, right? If we talk about this card in a frame of reference, how many cards in the game have that same text? Like, if you have X, this gains Y. There are so many of them in the game, and since we play an IP character-based game, it's so easy to reinvent that wheel like this. This Pete Steamboat Rival has been sitting in a bulk box forever. Forever. I mean, literally, since Set 5. Set 5 came out in August of 24. We're talking February of 26. And that's how long that card's been sitting in a bulk bin. So the idea that now you have this opportunity to really have a chance to make it good, that's such a win. That's such a win for Disney Lorcana. All in all, Ruby Sapphire is a deck that has struggled. It hasn't been performing, and with that, it's really difficult to know, is this it? Is this finally a time? Is Liquidator enough? Is Bell enough? Is this Pete comboing with another Pete enough? Is marching off the battle enough draw power? Is Grab Your Bow? A lot of these questions are going to be asked very early on in the metagame, but I do think that this is the first time in a while, basically since rotation, that Ruby Sapphire will at least be considered a 2-tier deck, like a tier 2 deck. As before, it was just like, hey, why are you trying so hard to win when you could just be playing better cards? This might be the first time where we finally can say, like, hey, the cards are good enough. Whoo! Circle of Life. We all know I love it. I've been enjoying it ever since it was released, and now we're finding even more tools. But the craziest thing about this deck, right? It's not about the Angel, right? We'll talk about it real quick, but it's not about her. Angel is another underdog character. We think that these characters deserve to be put in decks right now. You gotta play the games to understand how often they are good or bad enough. The 2-cost Amber Singer with Singer 3 is a 2/2 with 1 lore and the underdog. So again, if you go second and it's in your hand, you can play this for 1 and get a 1-cost 2/2 that has Singer 3. Why would we want to do that? Why do we want Singer 3 on turn 1? Well, of course, we've already been talking about it. It is the Akud. Now, in this, if you asked me what the biggest reprint was for this deck, or the biggest addition, right? It's Strike a Good Match. This card, Strike a Good Match, being reprinted in set 11. It was a set 3 card, and I loved it then. I love it now. 2-cost, inkable, draw 2 cards, then choose and discard a card. And of course, it is a singable action for a 2-cost. So yes, the idea that your Angel can sing Strike a Good Match on turn 2, filter out your hand really makes a difference for this deck. This is the one thing that was missing because, this deck is still playing a card like Yzma, but before we had to play Yzma, we had to play Scrooge, we had to play Bobby. You just had to play all of these things, and you can't always afford to pay 2 to put a character into play to draw a card and discard a card. Where exerting a card to play this for free just adds a consistently layer to this in a big way. And if you don't believe me, then you should definitely check out the Infinity gameplay that we have on this deck. We actually, a couple weeks ago, we put some Infinity videos on there. One of them was an Infinity Circle of Life deck, and I played Strike Your Good Match days, and I mean like 2 or 3 days before it got announced as a reprint on the Lorecast, I think it was. So as soon as it was announced, I was like, oh my god, like Circle is back. Like Circle it is just here. It has arrived in Core Constructed, and it's really about Strike a Good Match and how good that card is. Because you can see now, we have 18 songs in this deck. Before, it was just Circle and like Under the Sea. There was nothing else. But now, because we get Strike a Good Match, we get some of these other choices, and all of a sudden we get to play a card like, yeah, that's right, I said it, Kristoff Reindeer Keeper. Yeah, 13-cent rare. Remember we were talking about those set 5 cards that are just like seeing no love? Yeah, man, this guy is a 9-cost, uninkable, 3 strength, 7 willpower, 3 lore. He's got 3 lore. And he has the ability Song of the Herd. For each song card in your discard, you pay 1 less to play this character, period, right? And then he has Bodyguard. So Bodyguard, of course, comes into play Exerted, and he's Bodyguard. What is this enabling is that there are turns where, you're going to sing... you're gonna sing Circle, and with Circle, you're gonna put a Clarabelle back into play, right? We're gonna put a Clarabelle into play, and like that's like the start of your turn. And then you're gonna play a card, you're gonna discard a card, you're gonna play a Yzma, discard a card, play a Tramp, draw 5, discard 5, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you just have like literally so many songs in the discard pile that you're like, oh, I'll just like slam this 3/7 with 3 lore. Go. Like, this deck is so explosive and so much fun that I'm so excited. I really am. It was always fun to play in the past, but that's really what it was. I think now striking good match is everything. I'm telling you, having striking good match really sends this deck into its next like final form potentially. And of course, Ohana means family, right? Remove all damage from chosen character of yours. Draw a card equal to 1 damage. You're talking about a deck now that has 3 7s, 5 6s, 2 6s, 4 5s, 2 5s, but grants more, more willpower to Amber cards. This could be a 3/9, because of Mickey here, right? The Mickey Amber champion. All of a sudden, we're gonna have a 3/9. Like, how do you get rid of a 3/9? We have like a running thing right now in our team chat. Like, hey, like, listen, whoever gets the highest hit on Ohana, I want to know. I think right now the current lead is 6. I think it's 6 right now because of a Stitch. Maybe it's 7. But yeah, if you can hit like a draw 8 off of Ohana, oh my god. Oh my god. I think it's very exciting. I think this deck is really cool. I think it's really fun, and I'm very excited to get into playing games with it. The other card we want to talk about real quick is the Stitch Carefree Snowboarder, the 5-cost, inkable, 4 strength, 5 willpower, 2 lore. Bring your friends. Whenever this character requests, if you have 2 or more other characters in play, you may draw a card. So, of course, this is just like a baby the Carefree Surfer. It's just a 5-cost. You need to quest instead of doing it right away. But it really is, what it's really doing is it's replicating a card that you want to be able to accrued early. You can just have a Pluto or an Angel or a Bobby on turn 1, and Ursula on turn 2, and then you can sing and slam this Stitch on turn 3 as a 4/5. And then, you're off to the races running because now you have another way that, like, you can sing Under the Sea, you can sing Circle of Life if you want to do those things. I really think there's a lot of power here, and it's a really, really fun deck to play. So, yeah, I fully expect this deck to really start coming out. I think it's like one of those things where if, like, you're into it, you'll love it, and it's great. We do have a guide on this. I made a guide for it in set 10 because it's a deck I spent a lot of time early on. I played this deck in the LCC, so there is a framework for this guide. We're going to be adding more to it now with the new metagame, since I'm very adamant about how my guide should be, and I'm only going to push decks that I really spend a lot of time on personally, or that someone from the team has spent a lot of time on personally. So I spent a lot of time on this deck. I played different versions of this deck in different tournaments, and now we're going to be spending more time on it again, so we're going to be getting updates for it all the way, again, all the way through set 12. This will remain a guide that you can buy now, and it will be updated for the next 6 months. So it's not like, oh, I'm only getting a couple weeks out of this. Like, no, it's here to stay for the future. And I think this one even will also get turned into an Infinity guide, because eventually I think this deck is very good in Infinity as well. So if you're looking to support the channel, no better way to do it than buying a guide. Check it out on the Metafy. All right, so with that, we got a couple decks left, and I'm going to run through them because I know we're getting a little pricey on time, and that's okay, because honestly, I love doing these videos early because there's so much to be learned. There's so many new cards, and I really wanted to get through as many decks as possible here. So the big bad of the format, Raging Storm. That's right, Raging Storm, 8 cost, uninkable. Banish all characters, revealed by Mr. Burns and Natalie herself from the Lore Chronicles. I love this card. I love it. It's great. It's powerful. It's strong. Is it good enough? I don't know. I don't have the answers, right? Like, if we really want to get into the tax brass, an 8 cost uninkable is so difficult to play. But there's no other card in the game that reads banish all characters. It doesn't. Like, this card, there are no restrictions other than having 8 ink. So if we can formulate a deck that does that, it's got to be good, right? I don't know. Time to tell. I will say, early on, this is a card that we were excited about, and it's in a deck that we were excited about, because Amber Sapphire is a deck that just, you know, honestly, unless you were playing in Chapter 1 and you had all the cards, you probably have never even played this in combination outside of an aggro princess deck, which is fine, which is cool, right? Like, if that's what you're into, that's great. But I really loved Stitch Carefree Surfer decks in Chapter 1. The Amber Sapphire Stitch deck was so much fun, and it was so good, and there wasn't enough time to explore it. And it took 11 sets to get back here. So the idea that this deck even can possibly exist is so exciting to me. It's all built around the fact that Raging Storm is now here, and of course Spooky Sight is here. We have these plethora of uninkables. There's a world where Spooky Sight's a 4 of, I'm going to be completely honest with you, because this deck really just wants to go 2, 4, 6. So with the idea of Tipo and Cinderella all the way into a Spooky Sight to just clear the board as early as possible, that turn 4 Spooky Sight is going to be spooky. But what it also does is that it basically says that you're just going to have Raging Storm. Like, you're just going to get there. Like, if you go Tipo into Cinderella into Spooky, your Spooky is inking your Tipo, and now, like, we're already there. Like, we're already playing Raging Storm basically whenever we want. And I think that's the cool part about this, is that, like, now, because of Bell, right, whenever one of your characters is banished, you may put that card from your discard in your inkwell. So now I can still, what Bell does is, the Bell is the card that really represents the most interesting factors, because now, if the board gets out of hand, but I have Bell, it's fine. Because, like, all right, if I have a Bell, like a Moana and a Pete in play, whatever, especially a boosted Pete, right? Like, now, yeah, I'm going to banish all my characters, which sucks, but they all go to my inkwell, which means I get to do really brutal things. And I think most importantly, one of those is Gramatala, the Connected to Nature, the 12 cost uninkable. I said that correct. 12 cost uninkable. 6/6 with 2 lore, and the ability Ancestor's Gift. For each card in your inkwell, you pay 1 less to play this character. Yeah, so eventually you just end up playing this card, maybe not for free, but like if you pay 2 for a 6/6 with 2 lore, and then like whatever, like if you're on turn 10, you know, and you're just like, all right, I'm just gonna banish everything, like Raging Storm the board, and then I'll just put a Grandma Tal into play, and like that seems like an okay turn. Seems like an okay turn. The other thing here about this deck is that we have 8 willpower, 6 willpower, 5 willpower. We have lots of stats for Ohana Means Family, which is lots of draw cards, and then we're playing the Horseman Strikes, which is draw a card. You may banish a character with evasive. Like, this is just a spot removal, right? We talked about Ruby Sapphire and all of its spot removal, right? Like, we're talking here, we have Horseman Strikes, we got Spooky Sight, we got Raging Storm, we have World's Greatest Criminal Mind, we have Let It Go, and Hades. We have just as much. Like, just as much spot removal as any control deck would ever enjoy. So, yeah, I think this deck is interesting. I've been told by some of the Metafy students that it's been testing well for them. They've already made some modifications because we do give out our decks a little bit early, but it's really nice to see that these decks are going to be potentially make a splash within the metagame, specifically when you're talking about in combinations that just have not been good for a very long time. It's always nice to know that, like, it just takes a card. It takes 2 cards. You know, if we go back in time to Emerald Steel. Emerald Steel really wasn't playable in set 1. It really wasn't playable in set 2. Set 3, it starts looking playable, and then set 4, we're just off to the races, and it's historically the best deck in the history of the game. Hasn't done much in core rotation, but in Infinity, still very playable. In that portion of the game time, it was the most successful deck in Lorcana history, and we're still seeing it happen in other decks that are still playing that type of format. So, yeah, I think it's really fun. I think it's really good. Whenever time you have an opportunity to really explore new decks, I think you should be. All right, we're getting close to the finish line, and with that, we have the finish line. That's right. Day 1. This is a card, again, every single... We're talking about bulk cards, guys. Sugar Rush Speedway is the epitome of it. 2 cost, uninkable, 6 to move to, 7 willpower, with the ability Bring It Home Kid. When you move a character here from a location, you may banish this location and gain 3 lore to draw 3 cards. This is a deck that we have continuously goes back to. I don't think we have one for Whispers, but it did seem to get the right tools from this. Specifically, Angel hilariously plays a great role. Ursula plays a great role because this card is the key, right? Like, this card is so very powerful in the game, right? The Islands I Pulled from the Sea is a 3-cost uninkable that reads, search your deck. There just aren't that many cards in Disney Lorcana that read that text. And yes, it's search your deck for a location card. Reveal it to all and then put it in your hand, right? But the idea that you just get to tutor for the missing piece, right? Like the combo here, of course, for anyone that's unfamiliar, is the Sugarway Speedway, right? So it's a 1-cost, 0 to move to, 5 willpower, and then the ability on your marks. Once per turn, you may exert chosen character here and then deal 1 damage to move them to another location for free. So you basically just put that into play, and then you move one of your other characters. As an example here, Card Soldiers. Card Soldiers is another card that you haven't probably seen in a while because Ruby cards haven't been around. But Card Soldiers is while a damage character is in play, +2 strength. Okay, so like this card goes into the Speedway, exerts itself, takes the damage, becomes a 3/1 now, and goes into the Speedway, and all of a sudden you're drawing 3 cards and gaining 3 lore. It's a real trickle-down effect. The other pieces here are get to safety. Play a location with 3 costs or less from your discard for free. That means now we're paying 1. Like, we just get to pay 1 and, like, just put Sugar Rush back into play. Guys, that's kind of crazy. Alright, but seriously, like, why is this... Like, what is the time for this deck now? I think that it's just really about where the meta is. You know, like, all of these characters are quite interesting. Like, the Card Soldiers and the Queen of Hearts work very well with the Speedway effect of, like, taking a damage and then, you know, whatever. But it's also very good in an aggro field. You know, like, while this character is damaged, +3, she's just a 4/4, like, for 2. And it really just fits the flow. Having a 3/2, like, you just have the stats. You have Mowgli's to kind of interact. And then you have the Minnie Mouse as a card that we've always talked about. But, like, once during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may return a location card from your discard to your hand. Again, like, this whole compounding effect. Before, we were all in. You know, like, we were all in on Minnie. And it was like, yeah, if we didn't have Minnie, we were just in trouble. But now you have get to safety as well. And we have, you know, the location. So right before, it was like, hey, we got to search and find for the location. We have to have Minnie. We have to have all these things. We got to play a bunch of cards to find these cards. But now there's a bunch of repeatable actions. Like, the idea that Minnie and get to safety are there is 8 cards that bring Sugarway back. You had the idea that you have the tutor, you have the singers early on, Ursula and Angel. Either one is, like, honestly good enough. So yeah, if you're really looking to do something different and you only want to spend $20, that's my favorite part about this deck, guys. $20, under $20 for this deck. I think this is it. Beast is another card that's very interesting, right? Like, we talked about it. You know, if you have this card costs 0 to move to, right? Sugar Rush Speedway is a 0 to move to. So, like, if you just want to jam that and then play Beast, Beast comes in and banishes characters, and then whatever this character challenges, if he's at a location, he takes no damage. That means you might get a 2-for-1 out of this Beast, which is insane. So yeah, I really think that it's just a good position again. If you're looking to try something new, this is a really fun deck. I've been playing this deck a bunch, and it really is just fun to play. It's very puzzle oriented. It's also the perfect deck that if you just put it together and put it on your desk and shuffle up, you can goldfish it all day long and just be like, oh man, this deck can really snowball and do some crazy stuff. All in all, I think that this is a really interesting one. I really just wanted to include it because I know that people want to see different decks. I know that people want to see different budget decks. All right, talk about different decks. How about Ink Geyser? That's right, we're back. We're back as a 4 of. I'm loving it. We got the Jewel Collar. We got the You're Welcomes. If you guys recall, I played this deck at the Ink Invitational in September. I went 6-3. You know, in a 9-round tournament, I lost my bubble match in the final round. I could have been in top 16 with a deck that was based around Jewel Collar and Ink Geyser. So the question is, like, what is the difference? Well, the difference is Stitch. Honestly, I dare you. The 1 cost uninkable, 2 strength, 1 willpower, 1 lore with the ability I dare you. Exert, chosen opposing character gains reckless until the start of your next turn. This was something that was very much missing from the deck because the problem was that you would play Jewel Collar on 2 and then you had to have a Lewis or a Jasmine on 3, and you know, even sometimes Jasmine's not good enough, like you're not getting the trades. The Stitch turns it on immediately. Like if you go turn 1 Stitch into turn 2 Jewel Collar, you can just exert Stitch, give something reckless, and then turn Jewel Collar on. I guess I should show it off. In case you don't know what Jewel Collar is, I don't blame you, but it's a 2-cost inkable with the ability Welcome Extravagance. Whenever one of your characters is challenged, you may put the top card of your deck into your Inkwell face down and exert it. So you really are just accelerating the game very early on. And think there are cards that, you know, if this card doesn't get banished, I mean, you're off to the races, I promise you. But the other cool thing is Bell. So Bell is the 4-cost inkable, 2 strength, 3 willpower, 2 lore with Winter Stockpile. Whenever one of your characters is banished, you may put that card from your discard into your Inkwell face down and exert it. So now all of a sudden you're giving stuff reckless and it's being banished, and then you're also getting ink. And you're basically doing all of this to make this card a draw spell, right? Like we want to draw cards. So each player exerts all their cards in their Inkwell. Then each player with more than 3 cards in their Inkwell returns cards at random from their Inkwell to their hand until they have 3 cards. So if you spend, you know, the first 4 or 5 turns of the game interacting with reckless, you know, like creating these moments of just difficult decision points for your opponent, and then you're like, okay, let's start over, and you just draw like 10 cards. Your opponent's on 3 ink, you're on 3 ink, but you probably have like cards in play still. I mean, if you have a John Silver, I think the game like literally just ends. If you have a Clarabelle, the game might just end because you set up these plays that are just like so disgusting. So yeah, this is another deck that I have so much fun with. I love going back to it each format. It might not be there, but again, if you're looking for something different early on, I think this is a really nice deck to like pick up and give it a go. And you know, $100, pretty cheap comparatively to most of the metagame. Last but certainly not least, we wanted to end with the mechanic of Boost. Boost is a really unique mechanic in the game, and it's finally gotten some payoffs. So a key factor of this deck is Donald Duck, the Fred Honeywell, the 4-cost inkable, 4 strength, 4 willpower with 1 lore, and the ability Spirit of Giving. Whenever you use a boost ability of a character, you may put the top card of your deck under them face down, and Well Wishes during opponent's turns. Whenever one of your characters is banished, you may draw a card for each card that was under them. So, Fred works with all of the above. Genie. Genie is the 3-cost 3/4 with 1 lore and boost 1, and increasing wisdom. This character gets +1 lore for each card under him. So that means Genie can come out, you know, and all of a sudden, when you pay 1 to boost it, because of Fred, you'll be boosting it twice, which means it'll be effectively a 3-cost 3/4 with 3 lore, and this really gets out of hand if your opponent cannot interact with it. It also just puts cards under, so you can do a lot of cool tricks. I think Nana is the most interesting. Whenever you play this character, you may choose and discard a card to return chosen character with 2 or less to their player's hand. So yes, this works both ways, offensively and defensively. You can work as a way to bounce a card back, but you can also just do it, pick up a card like Miku, so you don't have to discard a card in turn. Or pick up a card like Flynn Rider, so now when you boost your Flynn Rider early, this Nana actually can turn into a way to draw cards. Of course, whenever we boost Cheshire Cat, whenever you put a card under this, you may move 2 damage from chosen character to chosen opponent. That means with Fred, with the Donald Duck, you will effectively be doing this ability twice. your cards are holding damage. You have the 4 willpowers, you have different things that you can really utilize that. I think it does a lot of really fun stuff. Of course, you also have the Minnie Mouse. Whenever you play this character, you may put the top card of your deck face down under one of your characters or locations with boost as well. If you do draw cards, then basically this is a 5 cost, 3/4, 2 lore with ward and draw a card and boost something. So like the idea that you can just freely put another under your Genie, under your Cheshire Cat is all really fun. We're a pretty big fan of the concept of these decks, right? Like getting payoff cards like Donald Duck in this is so very powerful. It really does work in like wonders for the game, because it creates these decision points of like, hey, is this good enough? How do I figure that out good enough? No better way than do it than just slam a bunch of cards in the deck. The other cool thing for this deck is Miku. I think this is a card that's going to come up a little bit more moving forward, but 1 cost evasive, 1/1 with 2 lore. Yes, it has the ability Bottomless Pit. At the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, choose and discard a card or banish him. So you have this choice of saying like, hey, do I discard a card or do I banish him? Like, what do I do? But like, this deck is in the perfect combination because we get to, we get to banish Pool of Levers. Like, discarding Pool of Levers is what the Diablo, Emerald, Amethyst decks of the past have always wanted to do on turn 1 or turn 2 when they put their Diablo in play, because then it turns on Wrong Lever, and then Wrong Lever becomes like one of the best cards in the format because it's return chosen character to the player's hand, or put it on the bottom if you have a Pool of Lever in your deck. So that's really what this deck is looking to do. It's looking to get a little bit incremental values, gain a bunch of burst lore. Really, you can gain so much burst lore. You can draw. You have the Dumbo draw engine in this deck. You have other effective ways to draw cards as well. You have Demona. You're doing a lot of things. I think this deck is very interesting, and I really think there's a payoff for boost at some point in the game, and this very well could be like the landscapes of that. And then, yeah, you got to start somewhere, guys. Like, I know it's difficult whenever you see these decks. We've seen them before, and be a little bit on the, budget side. This is obviously not the budget version. We're definitely playing a little bit more of a mid-range version of this deck to try and assure up some consistency and get some extras out of our cards. But all in all, I think it's a really healthy deck to try to start with. And with that, I hope I did a good enough job. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 decks in this video that we covered, and it's really just to get everything, get the juices flowing, get you excited for Winterspell. I try to cover as much as I am. I know this ran a little bit long. I'm trying to do this more like unedited version, but I know there was a couple cuts in this one, so if you stuck with it for me, thank you so much. Let me know, where are you starting? If you made it all this way and you haven't hit like yet, please do it. But seriously, what I really want to know in the comments is if you've made it this far, where are you starting in the format? I'm very, very excited for it. I think there is so much potential. Like I said, there might be 5 different Amber Emerald decks. There might be 5 different Amethyst Steel decks. There might be 3 or 4 different Amber Steel decks. Like, there's just so many things. I didn't even touch on everything. Like, obviously I touched on Racers, but there's probably an Amber Ruby Akun deck. There's just so much to look at early on before we even get these cards in our hands. So thank you so much for watching this in video to the full. If you're here, love you guys so much. Check out the Metafy guides. Join us for our roundtable. We have our next roundtable discussion on Thursday. All Metafy climbers are invited to come to that live recording session. This week we're talking about card evaluation. So again, thank you guys so much. We'll catch you in the next video.